Welcome back inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you live on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live, download our free app, and stream all of our live local shows, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today as we cobbled together the first hour. We heard from Steve Gadd. And now we get to talk to another drummer, classic guy, always in my thoughts. And recently, he, along with many others, were affected by the loss of a great spiritual musical mentor, Pauline Oliveros. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to pay homage to her by bringing on my friend George Marsh. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hello, Jake.
How you doing?
Nice to hear from you.
Hey, boss.
So we're all feeling very deeply that we've lost this amazing human being who was there with us. And I didn't know that I had a guru until this lady passed, and so I generally don't think in terms of guru.
So hold on. It dawned on you only after she passed away?
Yeah, because she was a friend,
yeah.
Fellow musician, a fellow improviser, a person I laughed with, bent the elbow with occasionally, and
I dig,
and really brilliant, and tricky and deep, all these wonderful things. And I suppose that any friend like that you could call when they pass. Oh, my guru left.
George, let me ask you. Can you talk to the audience around the world? Because, I found an album of hers, and I regret not being able to break it down with her. But can you give an example of when you became inspired by Pauline?
Well, let me think about that. I heard about her from some friends. This is 30 years ago, who. Jan Maddox and Lauren Rush, and both composers, and I was doing a piece with Jan, and Jan, a very complicated big piece we did at Dinkelspiel Auditorium at Stanford. That's another story. But Pauline was their friend, so we met up, and then I got to hear a little bit of her pieces, which were very meditative, but mainly I just met her as a person, and we just hung out and had a hot tub together in Northern California, and but then we eventually. Your question was about what did I hear from her as far as what was recording. I think it was more when we actually improvised together. She came to UC Santa Cruz, and she was doing some, lecturing there, and she heard my students, and she heard how I played, and we immediately started to improvise. So that's really when I got to know her, and she brought her accordion to the situation, which has a completely different kind of tunings. Accordions have keys, a lot of them, and buttons on one side, and the keys were tuned in something called just intonation, and the buttons also, but they were slightly different systems. So she had perfect pitch, so we would improvise with an emphasis on listening, deep listening to sound. And sound inside the body is something I've always done as a drummer. You and I have talked about inner drumming. And that's something that she taught, too, that you hear. One of the things she said later was you hear with your ears and you listen with your whole body. So what does that mean? Is what she taught and the way she lived. So she was always listening and studying, the art of listening. Make sense?
Well, I wanted you to talk specifically about, I think this is so important, hearing versus listening and your own career. Was this something that was somewhat revelatory when you met her? Because when I look up her stuff, it's always about hearing versus listening. Can you just talk to the audience about that in general?
Yeah, well, I can say the one question did it reveal? It revealed that I was already doing it. I just was. And another person that revealed that to me was Alaudine Matthew. So very often you don't know what you're doing until someone reflects.
Right.
So I did hear that way, and all musicians do it to a certain degree. So if I'm speaking to you, it's coming from my whole body in a way. What else could I say about it? Especially drums. All four limbs are going to express something. And if I'm feeling how the four limbs work, especially having studied it, and how they play various sounds and how they play rhythms and on and on and on, I'm talking about all the thousands of hours that you would practice. Then when you improvise with people, you feel that. So that's your body. So you hear with your ears, sound comes in from other players, the sound that you've just created with your body comes through your ears. It's like a circular thing. It's absolutely gorgeous. And what Pauline helped do with her retreats was get people together and just deal with sound and various ways that allowed all of us to listen together and to react in whichever ways we do together without having to subscribe to a 12-bar blues or a rock and roll beat or whatever. It was freer. If you're going to be playing a blues, which I love, by the way, you are putting something on the situation. You have to do that. Well, not in freer improvisation using sound as sound itself with its many meanings. So by doing this with people who agree to this, you can start moving around with your body. You can dance. You can make sounds through your mouth. You can play your instrument. It just opens it all up. And then after doing this in a retreat with people for 5-6 days, you go, wow, what happened? There's the most amazing feeling of unity that comes, that you share. And this is personal in some ways, but it's also what we all can do. We can listen together. It's just astounding. And this lady carried that, and she really lived in that space. So she taught that. She brought that out in me and my way, and everyone else that took these retreats, and then people throughout the world have done this. And when she left, we went, whoa, what just happened? And I feel now that I carry that inside of myself. And I did before, but she really helped hone that and sharpen it and point out possibilities and think really outside of the box of the standard music. Let's face it, it's given to us, a 4/4 rhythm, backbeat on 2 and 4. It's great, but come on, you know.
That was sort of the lead up, is that now that her spirit has left this earth, what are some of the specific things that you are going to try, that have always been inside of you since you met Pauline, that you are going to try to continue to push forward, different from the Marshian, philosophy, which is your own, but what specifically from her do you now feel an incentive and an onus to even put more emphasis on with people whether you're talking to Jake Feinberg or you're working with your students or you're on the bandstand?
Well, that's three
yep,
different
that's right.
things.
Yep.
You really know the good questions.
Well, a lot of people say I ask. I've talked to other cats. They're like, "Boy, you ask multiple questions in one." But yeah, I mean, riff on it. Just riff on it.
And those are very serious questions. So let's take it one at a time. Okay. Well, let's go to the bandstand. Okay. Let's start with that one. I'm going to be playing with people on the bandstand. Well, if it's my group, then it's not going to change that much. But except in the area, I'm going to do more improvisation that's based upon people really deeply listening and not afraid to respond, and work with that together with this particular group. What I like is doing that, which leads to forms that we're very familiar with, such as the blues. And not necessarily cacophony, of course, but actually beautiful tones and sounds of cymbals and saxophones and different types of sounds you can get through those instruments. You can bring a great piece into the situation by doing that, and then have that turn into something that's very recognizable. Some of these sounds people haven't heard in this culture of way too much of the same kind of crappy music all the time. And it's, forget it. I mean, of course, there are great artists around. There always will be.
Well, let me ask you,
farmers,
how much of what you're talking about with Pauline had to do with dynamics? Because that's what we're missing in modern pop, any music today is dynamics.
Absolutely, it has always to do with dynamics. And if you are unaware of dynamics, then your listening is compromised. So listening includes dynamics, timbre, which is like texture, so-called noise, sounds that blend with pitches, rhythms. It includes melodies. It includes everything. The European classical system is great, but it's a long time ago, and it's also male-oriented. That's another thing. How come there aren't any so-called great composers from 19th century? It's because it was male-dominated. There were great composers, but we just don't know about them. That was another thing, another issue of hers, which was totally spot on. But to answer your question, how would I do that when teaching? I have been doing that for years with teaching. I want all of my students to be able to play spot-on swinging jazz and different time signatures and cross pulses. But I do want them to be able to improvise while listening and to be able to understand what you just said. Dynamics is part of it, especially in drums. If you want to be emotional in a way that is anything beyond being some kind of a warrior. It's the warrior drummers.
That's right.
They're everywhere.
That's right.
I'm a better warrior. Well, what if you have a little more delicate feeling inside you? Well, and we do. You can use dynamics. It's extremely powerful. So you can be very soft with the drums, and you can play in a melodic sense with the drums. You can explore the textures, and plenty of drummers/percussionists have done this over the years. And that was a third part to your question, which now I've forgotten.
Well, I just, it had more, I don't know, more to do with the idea of, how you're going to, aside from your philosophy, what are the things that, also the question is this, without getting too personal, was her passing sudden? Was it unexpected?
Yes, it was.
Wow.
Yeah, and she just died in her sleep, and her partner Ione said that she had a very tranquil, sweet look on her face. So it seemed like as near as anyone knows, she just passed painlessly.
I mean, did she, just for the record, I mean, even though I guess you said you connected with her probably some 3 decades ago originally, but did you...
Originally, yes. Yeah.
What was she doing when Mike Clark was in a hippie bar watching Denny Zeitlin and Marsh expand the vocabulary of jazz rock music, classical music?
What year was that?
That was like 66, 67. I mean, Mike Clark was getting off bet more on that than whatever Brubeck was playing, just for the record. But did she talk to you about her past history? What was she doing in that time period?
Well, I don't know a lot about that, but she was part of the San Francisco Tape Center. I have Wikipedia in front of me here, which will tell me more. But she was part of. Yeah, let me think here. I'm looking. Well, she did. She was an early person to use tape to create sounds in an interesting way, along with Steve Reich and Terry Riley and some other people who are all working together as experimental, improvising listeners of sound people.
I dig.
They shared that. And she went on to Mills and taught that, and then she was always improvising during it. But I'm sorry, I'm really not the person that knows.
No, it's fine. You know what it is?
Knows a lot about her history.
Well, what is great about Marsh and I is that George and I have a deep, good relationship. And this morning, Friends of the Library, they always have their every weekend they have these sales at this little shed where they. The amount of literature and books, CDs is ridiculous. And if you're a member of or a friend of the library, you can go and of course they have these buckets of these baskets of vinyl. And I'm digging through it, and I find this album, Joe Mapis, Grass and Jazz, John Hendricks, Jack Teagarden, and then all of a sudden, in the box sets, what pops up? Pacific Standard Oil, Percussion, George Marsh. This morning, that record.
Grab it.
I got it. 25 cents.
Sell it for $80.
25 cents, dude. But I wanted to go back going back to Quasi Badu. Any African drummers that you listen to, what did they help you with behind playing drums insofar as deep listening, which is what Pauline's bread and butter was. The African drum, the whole idea is that it's language and it's spiritual. And can you talk about if any of Pauline's the hard listening is applicable to the kind of stuff that Quasi did, that you did with Quasi?
I think it's applicable to any kind of music for a performer and a listener too. I think it's universal. So if you're going to be listening deeply to the sound, one of the things was that you would listen to sound very close to you inside your body, and you would extend your listening out as far as you can, and you would be aware of, you would be listening at all times, not with effort, but you just would be doing that. So if you listen to African music and you listen to these people who are moving with their bodies, playing these really traditional, great, highly evolved rhythms with people singing over it, and you listen with your whole body. That's what I did when I heard something called Ballet Africain many years ago before I studied any African music. And it was like completely enveloped me and gave me a spirit of it avant-garde, it outswung swing in a way,
wow.
Although that's comparing. But it did everything. It did the whole deal. This was stage. This was like a bit of a play. There were songs, there was dancing, there were acrobats, and the whole thing was just like energetic. Whoa. So that was when I first got attracted to African music. And then if I wanted to start playing really funky, I just listened to a lot of African stuff. I figured, well, I listened to some of the roots. That's not the roots, and Western music is too. So, and then eventually studied with Quasi Badu, who was absolute genius. And the listening was so deep that he could sing very, very long phrases and just play them back on one of those squeeze drums that you've probably seen, those small drums you put under your arm and
absolutely.
Squeeze. And,
yeah.
Well, he called it the dono, D-O-N-N-O, and he was an Ashanti from West Africa in Ghana. And he would play these things very melodically that he just sang. And it just blew me away. That was part of that music, is the verbal, the being able to sing it, and then you feel it in your whole body. So that's how it affected me, and I'd certainly call that deep listening. So I guess that answers your question.
Yeah, no, but this is all stream of you're doing a fantastic job. Marsh, before I let you go, man, just can you talk a little bit about how your book is? I mean, have you been able to? How's the reception of the new iteration of Inner Drumming going?
Well, I think it's going quite well. I did talk to Chuck Scher. He is Scher Publications, very well known amongst jazz musicians. His books, and he said it's selling really nicely. I forget the number, but there's quite a few of the hard copies and quite a few of the downloads. So I'm happy. And then I also talked to a friend of mine who's been in the publishing business a long time, and he said he thinks this book, there's only one like it. and it's different when you look at it. Do you have a copy, right?
Absolutely.
Or did I send?
Absolutely, yeah.
When you open it up, it doesn't look like other drum books, and that's going to mean it's going to be a little slow in catching on, but he thinks that eventually it will just be everywhere, hopefully while I'm alive. And all my students now have that, and they love it, because if I'm helping them get into what it is, which is really deep listening through the body, to be able to play your drums, and it is that. I don't call it that, but it is. And so that the emotion inside your body is the sound, which we've talked about just now. And the answer to the question is doing quite well. I'm having great luck with it. So I'll just wait and see.
Well, Marsh, I really thank you for jumping on the horse here at the last minute, man. And look forward to seeing you. It's going to be a big 2017. I feel more invigorated than ever before. I just know that we all have to do what we need to do in order to feel liberated. And if you are a musician or a melodic improviser, just keep going with that, man, because that's the only thing that's going to get us through this next period of time. It's going to be very dark. So
it's a time to wake up, be in the center of a hurricane, if that's what it is. And do it.
That's right. And I think that would be, even though I never met her, that's the message that Pauline has left us with. So love you, man.
Absolutely.
Love you, brother. Love you, man.
Love you too, man.
Have a great day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Just heard from George Marsh and Steve Gadd, two of the greatest drummers that have ever lived on the planet Earth. And we'll be back with another one, Dom Fumilaro, right after this. Thank you.